Jusege, Bodhisattva Dharmakara, vows that he will become like the Buddha, Lokeshvara, to whom the hymn is addressed. When this vow is fulfilled, the universe will tremble, and all the gods and people will be moved with excitement, while rare and wondrous flowers will rain down upon them. Okay, so I know there's the English, but when you're trying to figure out the chanting, it's going to be in the traditional Sino-Japanese. It's going to be hard to track it, yeah? So that's why we kind of summarize it for you, yeah, the basic idea and content of the sutra itself. Okay, so this evening, this assistant to me, the minister assistant, Reverend Shingo Furusawa, will be leading the Jusege. Yeah, again, the chanting starts on page 55. So, Furusawa sensei, yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Thank you, Reverend Furusawa. At this time, we would like to express our appreciation, first of all, to all of you who have come to the summer sessions. Without your presence, we wouldn't have such a nice gathering for Dr. Tanaka to come to. And of course, let's give a hand to Dr. Kenneth Tanaka. Thank you very much. And at this time, another lay.
Oh.
Okay. Now, actually, there's a few more recognitions and thank yous here. Basically, one individual that I would personally like to recognize is our chair of the BSc Program Committee. He has been a big asset to the organization, and he has brought Dharma Light basically to the BSc, not only as a resource at BSc, but as an example or actually an alternative for other for temples to take a hold of and incorporate in their programs. Okay, so and he's going to be stepping down as chair, and unfortunately, Dexter, you still got to do a lot of work for me, right? You're going to be helping me with the ministerial training committee in terms of ministers' assistance program. Yeah, he'll be helping me develop that in the ministers' training committee, and also he'll still be on the BSc committee. So, Dexter, Mark, would you stand, please? And thanks. And you get a lay too. And of course, we can't function without a chairperson. So the incoming chairperson for the Buddhist Studies Center Program Committee will be Carolyn Uchiyama. Where are you, Carolyn? And unfortunately, bad news for Carolyn because she has a lot of work to do. She helped me at the Commission on Buddhist Education to reorganize the commission into a functional organization that not only just reports things, which unfortunately that's what it deteriorated into, but it actually implements things. For example, now the summer session is shared throughout the state of Hawaii. And it is the commissioners who assist and make those programs on the neighbor islands a real thing and at the separate districts. So Carolyn, yep, sorry, you're going to be working a little bit more, but thank you. Okay, now, like I said, I'm not in the best of health right now, so, it was really amazing that my staff has stepped up. And especially a young lady, Carrie Wong, who actually had to rush into the position because my previous, very, very wonderful previous assistant went on with her career. That's what I get for mentoring Jamie a little bit too much. But actually, joking aside, actually I worked with her, because she only can go so far within this organization. And I'm happy to announce that Jamie is now working at the University of Hawaii at the registrar's office, and she's actively looking for students to pass on to the BSc. So, but let's talk more about Carrie. Well, Carrie Wong, the timing was just right. She graduated with her degree in Japanese, and she stepped up. And I do know that sometimes things slip through the cracks, but because this is only her 6th month here, and she's really done an amazing job considering the amount of work that I piled on her. So she's running around right over there getting the water for Dr. Tanaka. And another new addition to the Buddhist Studies Center is ministerial staff. And Reverend Shingo Furusawa will be assisting in the development of youth programs here at the BSc, mostly under the Office of Buddhist Education. This is an experiment. We're sharing Reverend Furusawa with the Hawaii Betsuing, so that in unison with the state organization, he can also help to grow the youth programs at the Betsuing, and hopefully can tie in things like the Mission School, and Pacific Buddhist Academy. So, Shingo Sensei, please. Okay, and let's go on. You know, there's a lot of stuff that has to be done here. Yeah, and what I will do is that if y'all would stand, I will do it quickly so you don't have to stand too long. But these are all individuals who have been a tremendous help at the BSC. First of all, Faye Marr, Alan Goto, Rodney Moriyama, Roy Higa, and well, some familiar, Karen Uchiyama. Yeah, so thank you very much. Now, another thing we're working on is to have media available at the BSC, at our site, and on the YouTube. And we can't do this without technical help. Yeah, and we are very fortunate that two individuals are helping with our audio visual here. So David Kobashigawa and Miles Tamura, they're back there. Thank you guys very much. They work in the background, maybe unrecognized, so that's why I wanted to do this. And finally, again, because I'm working on half speed right now, I'd like to express my appreciation to our MCs. They did a wonderful job. I know Piper is not here tonight, but of course, Dexter Marr and Rodney Moriyama, thank you very much. Okay, now, I know this is going to look weird to you, and I might have these tons of advisors. You know what I notice? I always have tons of advisors. They always want to cue me on things and things like that. Sometimes, I got it handled. Sometimes it helps. Okay, but it's not going to help if you're trying to advise me when we're trying to set this up. Okay, so we're going to take a break and set up for the camera. Don't worry about the distance because we have this super wide angle lens and stuff like that. So we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, it's my fault. Okay, so let's take a break. And the folks, Aiko, could you raise your hand, please? Right over there. If you could help me by clearing the way of those chairs over there, and then we'll start figuring it out. And then if you notice, there are blue marks, and we're going to be having people stand in front of the altar. But for now, let's take a break. You can continue on, and then we'll start having you gather at the altar, and I'll let you know when. Okay? Thank you very much. go? Okay, let me get you started. Okay, if we could all start taking our seats. I know Reverend Tanaka is raring to go. You saw how he jumped towards the podium, huh? I think you guys are such a good audience that he's really ultra motivated. Okay, yeah, please, if we could kind of take our seats, get kind of settled here, please. Okay, so our fifth and last presentation, Dr. Kenneth Tanaka. I'll have him take the podium, and then when the video comes up, then he can start.
Okay. All right. Good evening. Okay, so the final night, and as I told you earlier, that I will show my DVD, a documentary by NHK that aired on April 8th of this year. Very auspicious April 8th, the birthday of the Buddha. And then there was a rerun on the 14th of April. And it's 1 hour long, and I hope it doesn't become too boring, but actually it's almost more of also kind of a documentary on my life as well, because we go all the way back to the time when I moved from Japan to California. And then we go into more recent times. And so I will do my best to try to summarize. I can't do all the word by word translation. And I do talk about some of the Buddhist values that are important to me, and you get a sense of how the Japanese are looking at my activity and what they find interesting, because I am not ordinary Japanese, and they see me using English to talk about Buddhism, and some of which you have already heard. So I think it should be interesting to you as well. I asked the director who did the documentary how many people actually saw it, and he estimates about 1 million. So I was impressed. I said, that's quite so anyway, so let's get going. And at the very beginning, I'm telling a joke in English, and you notice that not too many people are laughing. So don't worry. Anyway, this is the entrance to my school, Musashino University, which is on western part of Tokyo. This is my retirement party. Maybe you should move. We're dancing, and it's a kind of a dance that the Japanese know how to dance. I didn't know. I had to. Yeah. So this is Tsukiji Honganji in Tokyo, and I do once a month. They have a monthly English service, and I speak there twice a year. It's really wonderful temple. It's Indian style. Actually, it's based on your Pali Highway Honolulu temple.
So the question is,
No, English.
Why doesn't the Buddha vacuum clean under the small space under the sofa? And
Maybe you can turn. Okay. So Kenneth always starts with a joke.
so what's the answer? Well, we're talking about the Buddha now. Okay? Buddha. The answer is because he had no attachment.
This is great. You guys are so I'm explaining that joke in Japanese. She's one of my students at school. So attachment is, So some of these people, their English isn't that good, so.
He has overcome attachment. He doesn't have any attachment.
Okay.
The question is, why did the Buddha then ask Shinran Shonin to vacuum on the sofa? Yes. So the answer is, so that's important. Lots of attachment. 答えは、親鸞上人はたくさんの
So Shinran, because of he's an ordinary foolish being, had a lot of attachments. So he did the job that Shakyamuni could not do. He had a lot of attachment. This is my original, so don't use it without permission. Okay. Okay. Now starts the interview. So at the age of 35, Shinran got married.
そのような仏教のあり方、仏教者のあり方っていうのは私としては
So I appreciate that a person who got married and trying to lead a Buddhist life. I appreciate that way of life.
自分を批判っていうか
And then he was very introspective, always like looking within.
私は自分の愚かさっていうか
And he discovered his foolishness, imperfection.
っていうことが一つだと思います。
That's what impressive about Shinran. So this is a long time ago. And he is, I'm speaking for the narrator, doing research in American Buddhism. So Buddhism is taking its unique development in America. This is American Buddhism. Actually, this is the book that got me, the director of NHK visited me because of this book. So, and this is the Indian embassy. So he received an award, a prestigious award called the Eastern Institute Academic Prize. So on behalf of the Indian embassy and the Toho Gakuin, I present you the award. So I received this last year in November. So I'm thanking and acceptance speech. So thank you for the award. I still cannot believe the award. And it seems that it wasn't only myself, there were others. I have a friend who mentioned the fact that I got an award on Facebook. And then somebody else on the Facebook said, "What? Did he receive an award for his joke? Was it the award for joke?" So sorry, I have to start with the joke. There's an embassy ambassador of India. He wasn't laughing because he couldn't understand Japanese. So I was born in Yamaguchi, Japan, and moved to America at the age of 10. And it was clearly a foreign country for me, a lot different from now. So in 1958, the family moved to California. And I noticed, a lot of photos, I'm not smiling. And I noticed during this project. So mother is a Hawaii-born Nisei. And and the father who's fought in the war on the Japan side. So lived in a small town outside of San Francisco, and the life was not one of hardship. My mother was working for the American forces, so her salary was quite good. And we lived in a larger house than most people in the neighborhood. My father was not as accomplished, but it was he who wanted to go to America. I think he was looking for some adventure. But he couldn't speak English. My mother, of course, was bilingual. So usually when you go to America, your life improves. But in my case, we lived in a very junky house. It was a kind of a shock. Well, it moved downward. And I couldn't speak English. And 3 days after I went to school, couldn't speak the language. I didn't know what was going on. In a new country, I felt a great shock going to a brand new country. So what made him kind of have a hard time was also the fact that his parents didn't get along very well. My parents weren't very close. My father was rather self-centered. So there's a lot of quarrels in the home and not a good environment at home. And so we often didn't eat together because of the tension in the family. So couldn't find comfort at home, and met a Christian pastor who invited me to go to his church. It's a holiness church, and a very nice person. He said, in America you have to have a religion, so you have to come. Why don't you come? So he invited us. Very nice person. And we went there about a year and a half. But for me, I couldn't go along with the teachings. What I thought was to be problem was, if God created the world and is omnipotent, omniscient, all-knowing, all-powerful, but in my from my perspective, at the age of 13, I thought, why couldn't he have done a better job in creating the world? Especially in light of the fact that my parents were always arguing. And there are other problems in the world that you saw. So in Christianity, God created, but after that, we humans have to take over. But that wasn't quite convincing for me. Yeah. So after 3 years, he meets up with Buddhism. From a kind of a junky house to a kind of a normal house, we moved to a better part of the town. And next door, there was a Japanese-American lady who went to the Buddhist church. So she suggested, well, why don't you go to the Buddhist church, which I didn't know about. This was in Mountain View, California. So people who attended were all Japanese Americans. Not that I was overjoyed, but I felt comfortable. I felt comfort. And especially the teachings. The teachings of all things are impermanent. Everything is interdependent. And even as a middle school student, it made sense. And also the teaching, talking about suffering and difficulties. So it confirmed my experience, saying that, oh, what I was experiencing was just not myself only, but there are others in the tradition, including Shinran and Shakyamuni, who talked about suffering and impermanence and interdependence. So Shinran and Shakyamuni, they experienced difficulties and suffering, and then they devoted the rest of their lives to try to overcome difficulties and suffering. So that was kind of attractive for me. So the teaching says that, to have difficulties and suffering is part of life. It's natural. It happens. But in Christianity, there's a sense, at least for me, that there shouldn't be difficulty and sufferings. It shouldn't happen, but it does. Where it's a little different from Buddhism, which starts with the assumption that difficulties and suffering are part of life. And also, it's a matter of ethnic identity. I felt comfortable being at a temple where most of my friends were Japanese Americans. And identity is something that I experienced. In American society, you have many races. And the dominant group is the Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So other people other than Anglo-Saxon Protestant, need to work on their healthy self-image, which sometimes is not easy to attain. But by going to the Buddhist temple, I strengthened my identity and developed a more healthy attitude toward my being Japanese American. So the services at the Buddhist church is modeled after the Christian services. So we sing gathas or songs or gathas, and they often help to connect with our emotion and emotional part. So one song that I like is Bodhi Tree, and then he says, "Why don't you sing it?" I didn't need preparation. So like sea in lots of sunshine, but doesn't grow very well here. But the Dharma's not like a tree, it can grow anywhere on the earth at all. Like a shower of rain, bringing life again to a dry and thirsty ground. The Dharma Well, all of a sudden, he didn't, gave me, good thing I knew that part of it. So this is San Francisco. So 1960, and he gave Kenneth Buddhism gave him a way to deal with his issues. But being a Buddhist at that time was not easy because there was a lot of misunderstanding. He wasn't well known. So in America, people often ask you, what's your religion? So I was in middle school. So I was going to a Buddhist church. So I wanted to say, I'm a Buddhist. But I didn't have confidence to say that because the image of Buddhism wasn't very positive. It was more like an Asian cult where people look, meditating, looking at each other's navel. It's that kind of image that at least I had, and people around me probably had. So I couldn't say I was a Buddhist. So I said, I go to a Buddhist church in town. So making Buddhism a source of my base of my life. And my English improved, and friends increased. So now we're talking about high school. And the big guy, George Malin, I remember him well. He lived near my house. And we lived in Silicon Valley, Northern California. And George, he was in the football team. And in high school, you're the popular guy if you can be on football. But whereas I went out for long distance running for 4 years, and it gave me a lot of it taught me a lot about hard work and pacing yourself. And so pace yourself. I learned the importance of pacing yourself, and I'm trying to explain what that is. I was having a hard time. I'm asking my wife over here. She's sitting over here. So don't do things rash. So my wife says, coordinating by looking at your situation. And then we have the huge event, 1963, Kennedy's assassination. I think, Sissy, November? I thought it was October. Was it November? Okay, all right. 20, was it? Okay, I got. So from this point on, U.S. began to encounter many social issues. 63. It shocked the world and America, the assassination of Kennedy. So we had the civil rights movement and the women's liberation issue, and then the war. So we had great changes and also kind of confusion throughout the 60s. So the fact that Kennedy became president, it was a huge change because, he was the first Catholic president. And the society began to open up in the 1960s. And his becoming president is an example. But so what happened was because society opened up, it released pent-up issues that came up to the surface. So a lot of Japan people don't know the fact that Catholics are Christians, so why would they be somewhat discriminated against, or that why it's such a big deal that we had Kennedy becoming president. But throughout the world, there are more Catholics. But in America, Catholics only constitute 25% of the Christian population. So with Kennedy, it was a huge change. So after his death, the Vietnam War intensified. And 1965, we have the bombing of North. And the ground war intensified as well. Well, this is napalm, probably. And then I enrolled in college, San Jose State University, California State University of San Jose. Majored in business. And I enrolled in ROTC, partly because of the scholarship. And this is a big issue. So, at that time we had draft. So if I had to go, might as well go as a lieutenant, second Louis. Second lieutenant as an officer. So, we get training while going to school, and third and fourth year we get scholarship. But I had just become independent on my own, so I had to think about the financial dimension of my education. But I felt a gap because I had started studying Buddhism, so the reality of real world need for going to school, money, and then ideas of Buddhism. But I had to go with reality, the practical, because I needed money to go to school. And so, but sophomore year, Vietnam War began to intensify, and it's kind of accentuated the gap, the conflict, tension between Buddhism and the army. And here, the anti-war movement, the young people opposed the war, burning draft cards and returning the card to the government. And then I transferred to Stanford. I got in as a transfer in my second year. And then I had an event that changed the course of my life. So in Berkeley, California, there is the Institute of Buddhist Studies, which is the Honganji School for Seminary. And there was a summer session for a whole month. We lived there. We ate 3 meals together. They even had a cook for us for a whole month. And about 14 of us, mostly young people, gathered. And it's after the end of that, I decided to choose Buddhism as my career. There were 2 great teachers for that seminar. One is Professor Gibun Ueda, professor at Nagoya University. The other one was a scholar monk from Sri Lanka. This monk, they both are very impressive people. Especially the monk, he had clear, bright eyes that really impressed me. And I thought, gee, if you study Buddhism, you get these sparkling eyes. So, shiny, and also what he talked about is very. So I told a pun in Japanese, but it's so he's from. He was. I said what he said was Ceylon, like Ceylon. Ceylon means on the right track, or it's a right thinking. But anyway, I'll explain it later if you did. So, but the problem is that if you say Ceylon, young people don't know. So that Sri Lanka used to be, a country called Ceylon. So thinking back, it was the right move on my part to have gone to the summer session because it changed the course of my life. Now we hear Joan Baez is blowing in the wind. Actually, I didn't care about this too much, but the directors wanted to, I think they liked Joan Baez and not that I didn't like her, but So this was at a small cafe in Tokyo. People asking, was that your house? But it was such a junky little place. But actually, it looks pretty good on TV. Yeah. When I first went there, I said, oh my gosh, I think, NHK picked a dumpy place like this? Really, I mean, it was so cramped. But it had this kind of, 1950 American feel. And they even wanted to smoke, have a smoke in the air, in the room. I said, no, we don't do that. No, but anyway, so I think the director liked her. So, and then, so it's nostalgic. I'm saying it's very nostalgic. So we actually invited her to a YBA conference many years ago. It is YBA, Young Buddhist Association. So the YBA, the Young Buddhist Association, was quite involved to some degree, social engagement. So religion shouldn't be just tranquility or peace of mind of an individual, but we felt that it should, it should translate into action in the world. So I think this is the American sense of what a real religion is. Religion is not complete if it just stays within yourself, but only if you can act and express that ideals in the world for the sake of other people, then it's considered more real. So that's. This is an American attitude towards religion, at least as I see it. Okay, so pragmatic, I don't know, more practical or engaged. So we were interested, and I was interested in how to engage in the world from a Buddhist perspective. And many of the young people at that time felt that way, and was reflected in the YBA programs. So I, became pretty active in YBA, and eventually became president of the National YBA Association. So take Buddhism to change the world. That was our kind of attitude. So the director asked, do you have any examples? So Central Valley of California, you have a lot of farms, and you have immigrants who work as in the field, and we felt that we should support them in terms of as civil rights and also in terms of workers' rights, because we felt that they were being taken advantage of. But actually, I don't talk about it here, but we got into a problem because many of the members of our church were farmers in the Central Valley. So we got scolded one time. It says, "What are you young people doing? You know, you're siding with our workers." But, you know. So, but then we had many symposia on dealing with issues. So 1970, I graduated from college, traveled around the world, and I went to Thailand for a couple months and become ordained as a novice monk. But, you know, I told him not to show this because, you know, I look like I'm fishing, which is no, you're not supposed to be fishing. I was just helping the kids out. But in America, 1974, religious environment had changed. Buddhism became big, and especially Zen and meditative traditions. So many of the converts to Buddhism took very much interest in meditation. So meditation. And I think meditation is a reflection of the new paradigm, new framework for religion. So the nature of religion is witnessing a change from a religion of belief to religion of awakening. So religion of belief. So the religion of awakening emphasizes more experience, especially with the body involved. So traditional Christianity, not all Christianity, but traditional, tends to be religion of belief. So Jesus died for our sins, and we believe that. And then that, as a kind of a sacred narrative or sacred story. But we need to accept that teaching as a belief. And many people are no longer able to follow that kind of approach. Instead, more the religion of awakening is more attractive to a lot more people. So religion of awakening really values the body. Karada is body. And so religion of belief is more like, it's more head-oriented. Cerebral or more rational. You believe something that you don't really know. But the religion of awakening, it's more experienced through your body and through meditation or any kind of practice. So I think we see that kind of a shift and change. So those who are attracted to Buddhism, some of them we call them nightstand Buddhists, because why we call them nightstand Buddhists is because so they read books in the bedroom or in living room, and before they go to sleep, they put the book on the nightstand, and then they get up next morning, and then remember what they read, and then meditate for 40 minutes or so. That's a kind of an image of a nightstand Buddhist. It's actually a term coined by an scholar of American religion, a guy named Tom Tweed, someone I know very well. So these people, American nightstand Buddhists, know more about Buddhism and practice Buddhism than most Japanese Buddhists or people who regard them as Buddhists in terms of practice and knowledge. So in America, 1% of population are Buddhists, 3.5 million people, plus the nightstand Buddhists. So he wrote a book, Ocean, which all of you have bought. So this book is about the Jodo Shinshu, a religion of awakening. So it's a story actually that I heard when I was a kid, but I've kind of enlarged it, this story that I've been talking about. So it's, sailor leaves on a boat from a tropical island and then falls over and then tries to swim to the nearest island. Tries really hard to swim to the island, but runs out of steam and energy, and he's ready to drown. And that's when he hears that voice, let go, be as you are, Namu Amida Butsu. So he released his energy, kind of relaxed is the word, I guess, And then the ocean picked him up and embraced him. So it is an awakening called Shinjin. So whenever you become tired mentally and emotionally, kind of relax, release yourself. And he reaches the island, but from there, he goes out looking for his buddies, and that we call a practice to benefit other people, not just for yourself, but for other people. So I think that benefiting others is the ultimate goal of Buddhism. Once you have awakened yourself, so self-benefit, benefit for others. This is a night class that I teach once a month at the same place that you got the badges from, the Society for the BDK, Society for the Promotion of Buddhism. So this is my wife here, and so she teaches English pronunciation because it's teaching Buddhism through English. And then I speak half in English and half in Japanese. So it's the same song that. So this class, around 30. So this night, this lesson is on all things are impermanent. And you heard this before.
Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But this moment is a gift. That is why we call it the present.
So, did you understand? Hey, you guys picked it up well. No, they're all humble, So present has two meanings. So yesterday history means that yesterday has passed. So this word is very popular, or everybody knows, but it has a kind of a very sad connotation, image, very. So, but when we say it in English, it has a different connotation that many people find very refreshing. So, Shōjō Mujo, all things are impermanent. It doesn't have that dynamism and activism that it originally had, but in Japan, it has a very kind of a sad, maudlin kind of a feeling and negative. So I think that it has a much broader meaning. So we shouldn't be just looking at a teaching from one perspective and that a dominant perspective. So we should also emphasize the kind of the active dimension or the more forward-looking dimension. So if we say it in English, everything is changing, it gives a different way of looking at it. And Buddha also emphasized that very much, especially here, emphasizing the here and now. So often people think religion has to do only with life after death. But a lot of people think that is the essence of religion. But actually, Shakyamuni Buddha didn't really talk a lot about life after death. It's more concerned with here and now, in this life. So I feel that Buddhism is teaching to live fully, live deeply. I like the word to live deeply. Actually, this is Thich Nhat Hanh's phrase. So I feel that a lot of us, including myself often, we're not living deeply. So like when you're eating, you're watching TV or you're just talking and you don't even know what you're eating. And you're not savoring the food. Yeah? So mindful of what you're doing, your action. So when I was in Thailand as a novice monk, I was in a Theravada monastery in Bangkok. And my teacher taught me mindfulness in a very easy to understand way. So one time I was hanging a cloth or towel, a wet towel, on hanging like this. So I just went like this. And then the teacher happened to see it. He says, no, that's not the right way. And he came. And then he actually went like this from behind. I said, why do you do something that's odd? And he said, if you just do it this way, you don't think about it. But if you do it this way, then you become mindful of your action. And that is a actual, and so that's a good example of how to be mindful of what you do. My teacher was actually British, and so I think modern life, we just live more on a surface, and often we don't know what we did yesterday, So I think being mindful helps us. So in English, the interpretation, understanding is different from when you do it in Japanese. So Buddhism through English is not negative. It's more forward-looking. So this is a kind of opinion that you hear, at least the young people. So what's good about a lot of young people take the courses. Young, I mean under 40. Well, that's... So teach, talking about Buddhism, like all things are suffering. So life is a bumpy road. Or nirvana is peaceful or tranquil. So use life is fundamentally good. So life is a suffering, nirvana is, but it's really actually, life is, suffering is a beginning, not the end, and then nirvana is peaceful, that's the end. If you end up with life is suffering, then you will be awfully pessimistic in religion. The goal is the nirvana. Nirvana is peaceful and tranquil. Buddhism does emphasize, suffering. However, but that is not all. If you end with that, then you will be a pessimistic religion. So ultimately, we have to realize that you end up with awakening, or nirvana is joy and bliss and tranquil. A lot of modern or contemporary people think that life ought to go your way. Things go according to your wishes. Many people think that fundamentally that's the way it should be. But Buddhism teaches that life is a bumpy road. It doesn't go your way. It's like a roller coaster ride. And then the director says, "Oh, you mean jet coaster?" So in Japan they say jet coaster. So life is up and down and life is bumpy road. That's a reality. But we don't tend not to accept that. We know it in our head, but when we run up against real difficulty, we ask why. So when you run up against difficulties, if you have an outlook of life that is kind of natural, it's bound to happen, then you can deal with it better. So director is saying you lived in U.S. and Japan almost half and half. What do you consider important? I think not only Buddhism but true religion has, and I talked about this before, the 3 points. One is compassion or love, equality, and oneness or together, interdependence, interconnected. Those 3 points are characteristics of true religion. So these qualities, I feel, are evident in people who have consummated or attained the highest levels of any true religion, be it Islam or Buddhist or Christianity. And people that I respect, Shakyamuni Buddha and Shinran, and other great exemplary religious people. And they all, I think, embody these qualities. And he's not a religious person, but former President Barack Obama. When he went to Hiroshima and then hugged this survivor, this was very symbolic. And they, naturally, they kind of hugged each other. And and I was so moved, and I had tears, and that action really exemplified those 3 points of love, compassion, equality, and then oneness. So here you have a survivor and a president, head of the, at that time, enemy country. But there is a kind of mutual respect that emerged at this meeting. It's very symbolic of the, and it's first time that a sitting president visited that place. And then there is on both sides, you have a sense of, forgiveness that was found in that setting. So I think for the survivor, it must have been quite a, difficult situation where he's lost a lot of his friends and family. And this should be the ideal, but in the Saha real world, these ideals are not easy to actualize, to become reality. Such is the nature of the real world. But we should continue to try to actualize them to the best of our ability. But even if you cannot, at least you yourself personally, practice it or to experience it. So he retired recently at the age of 70, and the last final lecture, and his kids also came from the U.S. So there are about 300 people there. Half of them were my students. They had to go. So the theme of the university, which I use, is the happiness of the world. But we have to be, before we can think about the happiness of the world, we have to think about our own personal happiness. So I want to ask you all, how many of you are really happy? So raise your hand if you're happy. I'm fundamentally happy. Raise your hand. So, 134. So about half. That was a joke, 30. So I think it's pretty good. But even though you're happy, we all want to become happier. So we think that Buddhist notion of awakening or satori is considered, like too far beyond our reach. But it simply means to be happy, essentially. So this was a party afterwards. So Buddhism should be one of that is kind of forward-looking, more, more positive. So pretty soon we'll be closing. So Buddhism is often regarded as pessimistic and related to funerals, but it's not the original picture. That's not the way Buddhism was originally. But I think if anything that needs to happen for Japanese society is greater sense of autonomy, a sense of subjectivity, a kind of a confidence in yourself. Which I think that Japanese are very, honest and sincere. But they, in my opinion, they're somewhat weak in that sense of autonomy and subjectivity. And the fact that only 43% of Japanese in a survey said they were happy, which is the lowest amongst the advanced countries. It's lower than developing countries. And so the question is, why is it that in spite of this kind of luxury and affluence, why are the Japanese, their sense of happiness is so low? And I think that it may have something to do with weak sense of subjectivity. So you're not living true to yourself, or not really valuing the uniqueness of yourself. And well, and I think in the end, what people as human beings we need to do in life is to come to the realization of something that is very meaningful and deep and profound for yourself, which we call awakening. So, having born a human being, what is that which is important? I mean, the worldly, secular goals of success and money and all that, they're obviously important, but in my estimation, even more important is that profound realization of something that is true, that you find to be true and important, which are, in my words, those 3 points: compassion or love, equality, and sense of oneness. So, and then realize it for yourself and share this with others. Sharing this with others is important. And that then will consummate or complete what is important. So this is... this is called Djenka. I didn't know. I said, this is too complicated. And then the committee for the party says, oh, Sensei, everybody can do this. We Japanese, we all do this. I said, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so it's like a bunny hop, but yeah. But you stick, you go like this and then just. Okay, so there you have it. Yeah. Okay. I think it seems like you all enjoyed it. I'm happy. Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, we're thinking about it, but NHK has rights on this, and so I've asked my director try to, if they can, put subtitles, and I said I'll do it myself. I can translate it, but I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Okay. So I think we should take a break, and then we have one more session at the end. So.
Okay. So we'll take about 10 minutes, and then by the time you come back, it'll be 15 minutes. So I'll give you a warning at 10. So please get some more refreshments and use the restroom and stretch your legs, and we'll be back soon.
A lot of people said, within the series, I haven't watched all of it, but it's one of the better ones.
You kind of wrap up.
Yeah, and then the director got a lot of those clips, like Kennedy Assassination. Those are quite good.
Series called
Kokoro no Jidai. Yeah, they have it.
NHK 第一を第二
第三 what? 教育テレビ. But they always run it on Saturdays and Sunday morning. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Come to. I think I actually learned something too. Oh, good. Yeah, I think they did a real good job. And people who watch it usually, this is one of the better ones.
It's so fascinating how the meaning of Buddhism can change by the language you say it, even though you're trying to say the same thing.
So for the Japanese, like all things are impermanent, that's a very well-known term. Everybody learns it. It's part of a famous story from Heian period. So, but it has a very dark, kind of pessimistic.
Because of that story.
Yeah, that story. But when you say, everything changes, you say, even a famous scholar that I said, and he even commented, he said, well-read person, Djenka, change. Never thought of that. Yeah, for him it was a kind of eye-opener.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, I'm glad you could come. So I'll email you about what time to go. I can just take Uber to your place from here. Or what, yeah.
It's really about more power.
Well, there's an issue in that I have to take everything with me.
Yeah, right. Welcome to us.
Tell me about when is the best time.
What time are you done with work?
I'll probably, I always have things to do. Whenever it's convenient for you. So I'm staying over that night, and then someone will pick me and take me to the airport, and then I go to Hilo. So I gotta take everything, and I'm not coming back.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, after that. All right. Yeah, next time. That night?
There's a big one in Manoa. It's very popular.
Oh, yeah.
We can watch it.
Yeah.
We'll see how tired you are.
Okay. Yeah, so tell me. Take care. That was really terrific. Oh, good. For breakfast. So well. Yeah. Actually, the interview was like 3.5 hours. Short Yeah.
What's the basis for your equality?
Oh, equality? Well, for example, one thing that comes to mind is the Buddha. He accepted anybody from the caste system. So he didn't make any distinction. So he rejected the Hindu caste system.
Right.
And so that's one example. And then
But isn't that an acceptance of differences? I mean, just general awareness of the differences. So basically, life is impermanent, life is interdependent. Those are profound acknowledgement of the inequality of life.
Well, I think
And accepting all of it is your thought of equality, which is okay. But Buddhism I think, acknowledges that. You know, like dukkha, yeah? The reason why is the spoke is out of balance. And in a math world, that means it's not equal in all directions. So Buddhism acknowledges non-equality.
Well, no, I don't know which doctrine would you point out when you say Buddhism recognizes non-equality?
Well, life is suffering. Things are unequal. Things are interdependent. Interdependent. You think of yin yang, in a simplified interdependent. But you know, the shape of it shows it's not equal. It's rarely equal. It's usually unequal.
Okay, so I think we can look at the teachings in various ways, but as I said earlier, you asked me what do you get equality?
Right.
Yeah. So I told you that one clear example of Buddha's willingness to give even an untouchable an equal chance to become a sangha member. That is a huge difference between Hinduism of the time, his attitude. So whether you agree with it or not, that's my answer. So,
No, that's great.
But when you're talking about equality that you find in impermanence or interdependence, I'm not sure. You can dissect it in different ways, but those concepts are addressing a different issue, in my opinion. And so I wouldn't necessarily bring in equality. It's just basically the Four Noble Truths is an attempt to identify the source of suffering, and then how to overcome it. That's the main purpose. So,
right, but if you simplify it, isn't the source of suffering the inability of people to realize that everything is unequal in this world? Everything is changing, everything is different, so it's not equal. And that's the source of suffering.
Yeah, but I wouldn't use the word equal in that context.
If
you want, that's fine. And the other thing too is there's
So it's only non-discrimination. That's the only thing you're pointing out.
well, that too, and also, as I was about to say, is the enlightened person has a tendency to be not judgmental. Of course, you recognize the differences, but the word in Japanese called Jodo is actually a Buddhist term. So Jodo is essentially, my understanding is how that even so you're not, I guess the word is more discriminatory. You don't discriminate. Even on an epistemological sense. And that's the word.
I like to think of more of openness as opposed to equality. Yeah, I'm a technical guy. All digital electronics.
Yeah.
What makes it work is the non-equality.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that when I use the word equality, I'm not really making comment about that. The things are what they are.
Right.
They have differences, they have uniquenesses.
But I think that's the hallmark of Buddhism.
Well,
calling things what they are.
yeah, but that's the ultimately is how to overcome suffering.
Right.
That's the aim. So if you want to, what you say is calling things as they are, which is to see things as they are, which will include differences.
Right.
And I can see that. But I'm using equality in a different sense.
Yeah, no. I just want to. You stressed it so many times, and I'm thinking, where does this come from? Because I haven't heard the term equality used in Buddhism.
Well, it's a Buddhist term. Jodo means treating things equanimous, with an equal attitude. So that's all we need. And, if you have time, I have things to support what I'm saying. But
I just had it ready. I
Yeah.
just stressed it. I didn't relate to it anywhere. You know, so that's all. But thank you.
Okay.
It was a very good presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just had to.
Sure. No,
Because I pride myself on being able to see the differences, you know, and to treat them, you know.
yeah, okay, so treat them equally. See, that's the part that's the part that if you make too much distinction, it does I guess this is hard to contribute to a sense of suffering. So, okay, anyway, I got it.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you know, I think I don't. It's really hard to kind of, you know, come up with something. So,
What do you recommend?
I want. Can you give me an email and then let me kind of, because I really didn't have too much time to really think about it, and I like to, you know, I think they're important issues. So yeah. So you have my email on the resume, my handout. You know, please email me, and I will, you know, give it a thought and
Thank you very much.
do back and forth.
Talk to you.
Oh yeah.
So would it be better after?
Yeah, after.
So now you can.
I just want to thank you for your class that went through here. I think this was for the Buddhism student. I was having a worked out.
Okay, we're about to reconvene. Please regather. We'll kind of watch our time and see if we're able to have a Q&A before 9 o'clock. If not, we'll still have a pauhana for those that want to stay.
Stay for Pahal.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But there'll be no time for question and answer. Right. Yeah. Because I just kind of said. You know, maybe I will. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, maybe turn that way and then. No, it's okay. Okay, let's begin the last session. And actually, we don't have much time.
so I won't be able to do the more thorough job that I wanted to do. But let's begin with this one. And I have a little bit of PowerPoint slides to show you if we have time and things work out. I think we won't have time for question and answer, and hope we would like to end at 9 o'clock. So, okay. Basically, this last section has to do with the end of the story, and I won't draw the picture anymore because you've seen so many times. The island, and it reaches the island. So, reaching the island is an example of attaining the ultimate goal of becoming a Buddha. And then in Jodo Shinshu, we have the notion of the teaching that we also return or go to other realms to assist others, work for the benefit of others. And so, first of all, with regard to Pure Land, it's such a, complex teachings. And we could spend, if we want to do a thorough job, spend a whole summer session just on that. But I just wanted to kind of address the central issues or the kind of some of the points that are important but are not really discussed very much. And so let's go the nature of Pure Land. And maybe I think it's better for me to just read it first and then I'll make comment. Okay. So the first issue. So look at we're in the middle of the page. Working to benefit others in the Pure Land, the realm of oneness. I'm using the realm of oneness more as a. So I think we have to make a distinction between more of a rational expression as opposed to something that is more metaphorical, more tangible. So Pure Land is more metaphorical, more tangible. Whereas when we say realm of oneness, it's more theoretical, more rational. So, okay, number one, reaching the island represents the stage of reaching the Pure Land. So I just said that. On our parable, reaching the island is like reaching the Pure Land, which in our tradition means after death. Okay? So number two, Pure Land for Shinran was not a place, in quotes, to lead an eternal life in peace and comfort. Pure Land is a symbolic representation of the realm of oneness or of enlightened reality. So I'm using the word oneness, which I like. It's ichinyo in Japanese, and or sometimes there are other words to describe this. So realm of enlightenment, enlightened reality, realm of oneness, but the Pure Land is more of a kind of a metaphorical, tangible expression for people to feel kind of, can be feel connected more emotionally as well. And it's something that people can identify. Religion has to be more, especially religion that caters to ordinary people. You have to have stories, or sacred stories, I call it, that people can relate to. So first I'm going to talk about nature of Pure Land. Okay, one. Pure Land is a more static and a metaphorical representation of the realm of oneness. It is portrayed in a more worldly manner with bejeweled trees and ponds to entice people to go there. However, it's important to keep in mind that Pure Land is worldly on the surface, but its essence is spiritual. For example, simply by imagining, food can appear in front of you in the Pure Land. Isn't that great? Your favorite food, think of it, appears, okay? So it's kind of worldly, However, the person doesn't have to eat it because merely looking at it fulfills him. So you don't have to eat it, and you fulfill just, boy, if we can do that, we can, have a Pure Land diet. Just looking at it, you get fulfilled. So the scene is worldly or physical because we are dealing with food, but it is ultimately spiritual as one does not have to eat it to be fulfilled. So the spiritual is more important than the worldly or the physical. So the Pure Land looks like, some people say, Pure Land is so kind of, jewels and diamonds and it seems so secular and worldly. But it's just a means to entice people, especially in those older times. But ultimately, it is a realm of spiritual, and spiritual is more important. So that's the first point. Second point is this is something that may not be of concern to some of you. In fact, for some of you, Pure Land may not be a concern because some people say, what is important is here and now, when I'm alive, how we conduct ourselves and happiness and that we can realize. But religion has to also deal with life after death. And although Shakyamuni Buddha, as I said in the DVD, that his emphasis is more in this world. But Pure Land Buddhism has teachings that go beyond this particular present life. And so how is one born and what goes to the Pure Land? This is, okay. So how is one born? With regard to how a person is born, the first point, the tradition simply explains that birth in the Pure Land takes place in the form of miraculous birth, upapaduka. This is one of the 4 kinds of birth, which are 1, being born from the egg, from a womb, from moisture, and in a miraculous way. So it's the 4th kind. This means that it is beyond the comprehension of us ordinary imperfect beings. So the Indians had the notion back then that there are 4 kinds of birth, and the last one is called miraculous birth. And but we don't know. There's no way for. They don't explain what that is. It's just inconceivable. It's miraculous. Okay. Now, second point. With regard to what part of me then goes to the Pure Land, there is no concrete and detailed explanation either. Shin Buddhists throughout the centuries accepted the sacred narrative in its story form found in the sutras and promoted by Shinran and other masters. So on this point, well, then what goes to the Pure Land? There is really no explanation that is very detailed or clear or that I can see. And but as I said, the olden people, the past, they accepted it. And by and large, that's the way religions function. They have a sacred narrative, and you have to accept it for what it is. But the third line, however, for those of us with modern education, nurtured in American culture, some of us seek a more concrete and rational explanation in response to this explanation. So in response to this need, I have come to think as follows. So this is my interpretation, and you can take it or leave it. And but basically, let's say doctrine. So just for our sake, we have the doctrine or teachings that we have inherited, and it's the teaching of Shinran, Shakyamuni, and then in our tradition we have Renyo and others. So we have a set of doctrine. But each of us needs to interpret or to kind of savor for ourselves. Otherwise, this doctrine doesn't mean much. So we all do this to some extent. Some people have only a little bit of interpretation. Other people have a lot of interpretation. And so what I'm about to say is my interpretation, and I just wanted to share with you. Okay? Buddhists did not accept an unchanging, a substantial entity called a soul or the self or Atman. And we all know this. But did accept an ever-changing, ongoing flow, and there's a Sanskrit word called santana of a particular individual. So it's not a singular, unchanging substance called soul, but it's a ever-changing, and it's also, I wanted to put also composite, different elements to it. It's made of different parts. But anyway, it's not that Buddhism negated anything that went from here to next. Otherwise, how would you have karma? Karma wouldn't work if you didn't have any notion that things went, what I did had an impact on the next, in the future. So in my view, such an ongoing flow can be found in Shinran's teaching of karmic consciousness, Goshiki, related to Shinjin. This will be similar to the consciousness, especially in its later developed form, which is one of the 5 experiential processes or 5 skandhas or 5 aggregates that we have been talking in our previous session. Remember the 5-part and the one in the middle, consciousness? And Shinran Shonin talks about karmic consciousness. And it's not talked about very much, in my opinion. But I think that Shinran did also acknowledge this word goshiki. Shiki means consciousness. Okay? And so if we can acknowledge that, so when a life of a person of Shinjin, okay, this is important, not just ordinary people, but a person of Shinjin passes away, it is his or her karmic consciousness that joins or emerges with a formless realm of oneness. So, and when the tradition expresses this in a more metaphorical language of form, the sutras talk about, born in the Pure Land, in the bejeweled Pure Land. So, but I think fundamentally, it's not so much, metaphorically we use the word born in the Pure Land. But as we were kind of hinting the other day, when our body goes, the consciousness that we have nurtured or nurtured by Amida, we join and merge with Amida's consciousness of ultimate realm. Okay, and then Master Shandao explains this relationship as, please put as after relationship, as pointing direction and establishing form. This is a little complicated, but it's Zendo, Shandao, he, let's just say form. So I'm using formless, or let's say realm of consciousness, realm of oneness. Ichinyo, or Hosho, Hoshin, or we have these terms that is in a way formless, and then it takes form, and the form is Pure Land, Sukhavati. This makes it easier for people to relate to. So we have the form. So this relationship, Zendo, Shandao uses the word called Shihoriso. And then in English, I guess translation is pointing direction and establishing form. So what is beyond form is that the Buddhist masters are, great teachers, experienced this and then explained it in a form, described the Pure Land or said it's in the western direction. That's pointing the direction and giving form. And so Zendo, Shandao, he acknowledges that we have these two levels. Okay? And so that's what it, I think, so that's the way I would interpret my interpretation of what goes to the Pure Land. And then, some people say, well, who cares? Just, accept it, But for ordinary foolish person like myself, I need something to hang on to. When we say we go to the Pure Land, for me, it works better if I have this kind of concept that essentially I think is, basically on the mark. I don't think it's too far off. And so the notion that when my consciousness realizes a level of the mind of Amida, fulfills itself, and then when the body goes, you merge, and you become one with what was already there. Okay, and the last point, returning from the Pure Land. Okay, now this is a more, maybe even more esoteric, but I'm just going to take I'm just throwing this out and for you to consider. So, for Shinran Shonin, a personal Shinjin enters the realm of oneness immediately upon death, thereby becoming a Buddha. So you all know now that, earlier Pure Land Buddhism, you went to the Pure Land and you practiced, okay? But for Shinran, it's no longer needed. You immediately become a Buddha, or you become one with the realm of oneness. As a Buddha, he or she works for the benefit of others to help them to become Buddhas. So that is why Shinran speaks of returning to the Saha realm to lead others to Shinjin realization or to awakening. From an experiential standpoint, as different from doctrinal, so it's more, when I say experiential, it's more interpretation. I interpret this process to be similar to what Freddie the Leaf experienced. After leaving the tree, he joined life with a great, capital L, to participate in the ongoing workings of life to foster new life. So he merged, and he joined the, greater works of life. So if you see life is similar to, the great work, the compassionate workings of Amida, then we have a clear way of appreciating it. Some people wonder how and in what form one comes back. Again, Shinran did not explain in concrete terms. So in offering my personal interpretation as Buddhas, we will be able to take any form we wish. So this is more, take any form that you wish. Isn't that great? No, in my ocean book, I cited a devout Shin Buddhist, Keiko Hirano, who died of cancer at the age of 39, leaving a mentally and physically disabled daughter named Yukino. Okay. The letter that she left for her daughter soon before death read, Yukino-chan, I'll be waiting for you in the Pure Land. When at the end of your precious life, as you become freed from your body, you and I will together become the wind to freely run around the fields and mountains. We shall also be able to shake the trees' branches and sing together with the birds. Now, so Pure Land Buddhism is strong in imagination. And there's nothing wrong with imagination. Not just conceptual. Some people think conceptual is higher than imagination, but it's not so. And so here, this Mrs. Hirano, she's leaving a mentally and physically disabled child, and she, dying at the age of 39, but she has this yearning and the imagination that one can, I'll be waiting for her. So there's this imagination that we will be able to meet people that we know and we love, and that part is very, very much within the whole teaching, within this framework. And then I explain more here too. Okay, this reminded me of a parrot in a sutra which tried its best to put out a forest fire where it had lived all her life and where all her animal friends lived. The bird fetched water by drenching her feathers in a nearby pond and flying over the fire with the droplets of water to extinguish the fire. Brahma, a god, was deeply moved, but told the parrot that her effort was useless. However, the parrot continued her effort to put out the fire, replying, "As repayment of my gratitude to the forest and to save my friends, I can never allow my effort to fail." So hearing these words, Brahma was even more impressed by the bird's determination. So he joined the parrot, and together they extinguished the fire. I like the story. The parrot does whatever he can, but she just wanted to do something, to do what we can to assist others and help others. Now, to appreciate and understand the message of Pure Land Buddhism, we need to generate our imagination to a greater degree. In the phase of returning from the Pure Land, we can imagine meeting up with our family and loved ones as Keiko Hirano did. And even as a bird, one can work for the benefit of others. Or we can take the form of Brahma to carry out the work of a greater scale, on a greater scale. So remember, we are now Buddhas, so we can take any form we want, okay? So you can imagine this. Yeah? You come back in whatever form you want, but for the purpose of assisting others. As ordinary imperfect beings, what happens after death is inconceivable. We cannot know. But we can certainly imagine the possibilities of what we can do to actualize the Buddhist ideals of compassion, equality, and oneness that I talked about. And so, in conclusion, best wishes to you all. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, so I think we have 10 minutes. Maybe I'll show that one. So just as another kind of visual aid, and we asked the question, what is a vow? How do we appreciate the vow or the compassionate workings on our lives? And in my case, I see the everyday compassion that is all around me and all around us, but often we forget to acknowledge or notice. And so yesterday I talked about beauty, and so I took shots of flowers from California and Japan. So just want to go by them, okay? And if you look, these are just everywhere, and if you just look at them, it's just exquisitely just wonderful. I mean, just the beauty of nature and how complicated they are, and they're all around us. And this is just I don't know what's this? Daisy. Okay, no. And the green on this, okay? Tulips at my university in Japan. And California. And, okay? Okay? This is also California. These are, I don't know if they're flowers, but they're just very. And then this is Japan. Around Ohigan time in fall, they always bloom around. And this is in Japan at the Inokashira Park in Kichijoji. Here's the cherry blossoms, and it's reflected in the pond. And this this year I got to enjoy the cherry blossoms more now that I'm retired. And then this is a shot that I took flying over Mount Fuji. It was impressive, yeah. And this is our dog. No, not our dog, but until recently it was the only grand dog or anything grand. Now it's going to be, probably lowered on the level of priority. These are my cats. These are my. They've been coming for 10 long years. They're what do you call it? Stray cats, feral cats, and these sister and brother, and this one is daughter, and but they're so sturdy and hardy. And one time they stopped coming, and it was I who felt lonely. Before that I used to say, "Oh, I got to feed them all the time." And this one, would you, if you can go back. It's okay. So the yellow cat, this one here, is the same cat, but they come and eat all the time. But as you know, feral cats, they won't let you pet you because they're just stray cats. They run away. So and next, about 4 years ago, this Mickey, we call him Mickey or Mike, and we saw him at a different part of the neighborhood, only about 300 yards. And this time, he meowed, he came up to me, and I was able to pet him. First time in 7 years, or so I was so happy, and and I don't know the psychology of the cats that they do that, So someone explained to me that, well, in a different part of the neighborhood, he will see me differently, and but I think what happened was actually I neutered all the cats by capturing them, and this is a whole story too. It was so fascinating. I just you get little fish and you put sugar and shoyu and you fry them and make it really tasty. And don't feed them for 2 days, and then they all get caught real easily. Trap him. And then, so maybe he remembers that trauma, Okay. And then, now I'm going to talk about my teachers. So this is a British teacher in Thailand who taught me this, don't do this, do this. And so Venerable Kantipalo, okay. Then who do you think this is? This is me. 22, 23. So they kind of paint your face, which is kind of ridiculous, Okay. And he's my teacher at University of Tokyo, Professor Takasaki, who was so good to me. He helped me through the MA thesis when I was in Japan. He's gone too. Next. This is Professor Lancaster at UC Berkeley. He's my professor when I did my PhD. Okay, and you know who this is, Dr. Bloom. And I really like this photo because his expression looking at Amida, you can see, he loves, he just cares for, and that's the kind of person he was. So, okay, Al, I miss you. Okay, this is my probably core spiritual teacher, Professor Miyaji Kakue. And he's the one that kind of gave me, deep insight. So You know, I just remember when I first met him, I had just come back from Japan. He was 70 years old, and we were guest speakers at a conference. He would be speaking Japanese and I English. And I remember him saying, 70 years old, how old he is, you know? Now I'm same age. Okay. Oh, okay. The Pope, I thought I took this out, but okay. So John Paul II. When I met him, just briefly, because there are 150 people waiting, so you have in a few seconds, but he shook my hand, and I told him, I said, I got to say something, right? So I said, I'm happy to come. It was called a gathering for the praying for the world, peace in the world. So I grabbed his hand, and so I told him, I want to work harder for peace. And so he couldn't speak because he had Parkinson's, you know, at that point. So he just kind of lifted his hand real hard, and then boom, you know. It's almost like a gesture of, you know, please go and do it, you know. So, well, he was a very, you know, moving person, I thought. Okay. And this is in China. I recently went to teach there as an exchange faculty, and these students, they're all Japanese majors, and they speak Japanese perfectly, now almost perfectly, but the China and Japan, they have problem. Of course, we have problem with them too. But the kids are different. I mean, you get to know them as individuals. Many of them, they like anime and things Japanese, and there are actually a lot of students in China studying Japanese. This school is at Tenzing, yeah. Anyway, 10,000 students, and 1,000 of them are majoring in Japanese. Okay. And these are the wives of temple families in Tokyo, where I give the talk. I ran a discussion group or study class. Okay. And then these are my students, and they both are, now she's a mother of 3, mother of 4, and so I just wanted to, so these are, like teachers, I show the teachers, but also the students, students that I had, and they have given me so much, and they came to my graduation or retirement party. Okay. Here's my mother, now 96. She's kind of deteriorated since, but she's still hanging in there, and so okay. And then this is my family, and so okay. So these are the expressions for me of everyday compassion, and flowers and family and people and animals. Okay, so that I think this will do it, and thank you very much for laughing, and it's been enjoyable, and it was kind of hard getting ready every day because as I said, I hadn't written anything, gotten things ready in English, so I had to kind of translate or for your group. Okay.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tanaka, for just a fantastic job. We don't often on Fridays. It's there's fewer than on Monday, but I think we have more on Friday this time because of your outstanding work for us. And so, thank you for guiding us along the path and helping to have us in the embrace of the circle of compassion as we all try to strive along our life's journey. And remember, we will have a pauhana, the last one, over here. So those of you that want to grab a beer with the doc, it's available to you. Okay. Thank you very much for attending summer session this year.
Okay. Everyone picked up your badge.
Yeah, we still have pins up here. So those of you that